Connor Walsh squinted against the blinding light, his head throbbing as consciousness slowly returned. The acrid smell of burning electronics filled his nostrils. He blinked, trying to focus on his surroundings. Gone was the sterile interior of his spacecraft. Instead, lush vegetation surrounded him, a kaleidoscope of alien flora in vibrant hues he'd never seen before. "What the hell?" he muttered, pushing himself up on shaky arms. The last thing he remembered was the proximity alarm blaring as his ship careened towards an uncharted planet. Now, he found himself sprawled in a small clearing, bits of wreckage scattered around him. A rustling in the nearby foliage caught his attention. Connor tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for the utility knife at his belt. "Hello," he called out cautiously. "Is anyone there?" The rustling intensified, and suddenly, Connor found himself face to face with the most breathtaking woman he'd ever seen. Her skin was a deep, shimmering sapphire blue, her eyes like liquid silver. She stood nearly as tall as him, with a lithe, athletic build that put supermodels to shame. Connor's jaw dropped. Hello," he stammered. The blue-skinned woman's eyes widened in wonder. She reached out, her slender fingers hovering inches from his face. "Zarnak?" she whispered, her voice musical and lilting. Before Connor could respond, more movement caught his eye. To his astonishment, more women emerged from the surrounding jungle. Each was as stunningly beautiful as the first, but with skin tones ranging from soft lavender to rich emerald green. They stared at him with a mixture of curiosity and, was that attraction? "Ladies," Connor said, forcing a nervous chuckle, "I come in peace." The sapphire-skinned woman who'd first approached him stepped closer. "I am Azura," she said, her accent exotic but her words clear. "You are not from here." Connor nodded, still struggling to process the situation. "Connor Walsh. I'm from Earth. My ship. There was an accident." Azura's silver eyes lit up with excitement. "Earth! We have heard legends of your world." She turned to the others, speaking rapidly in a language Connor couldn't understand. The group erupted in excited chatter, several of the women moving closer to get a better look at him. A statuesque woman with skin the color of amethyst gracefully approached. "I am Violetta," she introduced herself, her gaze traveling appreciatively over Connor's form. "We have never seen a male like you before. You are most intriguing." Connor felt his cheeks flush under the intensity of their stares. "Thank you, I think. Look, I'm a bit lost here. Can someone tell me where exactly I am?" Azura nodded eagerly. "You have crash-landed on Elysium, a former pleasure colony for advanced alien races. We are the last inhabitants." She gestured to the group. "There are 30 of us in total." Connor's eyebrows shot up. 30 women? And no men? Violetta laughed, a sound like tinkling crystals. "No men. Not until you arrived, Earthman." The implication of her words hit Connor like a ton of bricks. He was the only male on a planet full of gorgeous alien women who seemed fascinated by him. It was like something out of a teenage boy's fantasy, or a very specific type of adult film. "Right," Connor said, clearing his throat. "Well, I should probably focus on assessing the damage to my ship and figuring out how to get home." Azura's face fell slightly. "But you've only just arrived. Surely you can stay a while. We have so many questions about Earth, about you." Connor hesitated. The responsible thing would be to immediately start working on repairs. But the hopeful looks on the women's faces tugged at something inside him. Plus, he had to admit he was curious about this strange world and its inhabitants. "I suppose I could stay for a bit," he conceded. "But first, is there somewhere I could clean up? The crash left me a bit worse for wear." Violetta clapped her hands excitedly. Of course, we can show you to the bathing pools. They have remarkable healing properties. As the group led him deeper into the jungle, Connor couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a very unexpected turn. He only hoped he was prepared for whatever this alien world had in store for him. The bathing pools turned out to be a series of shimmering, opalescent hot springs nestled in a secluded grotto. Steam rose from the surface, carrying an intoxicating floral scent. These waters will rejuvenate you, Azura explained, gesturing towards the largest pool. Please, make yourself comfortable. Connor hesitated, suddenly aware of his audience. Do you ladies mind giving me a little privacy? The alien women exchanged confused glances. Violetta tilted her head, her violet curls cascading over one shoulder. Privacy? Is this an Earth custom? Sort of, Connor said, feeling his cheeks heat up. Where I'm from, it's customary to bathe alone. Azura's silver eyes widened in understanding. Ah, I see. How fascinating. We shall respect your Earth ways, Connor. She turned to the others, speaking rapidly in their native tongue. The group retreated, though Connor noticed more than a few lingering, appreciative glances thrown his way. Once alone, Connor quickly stripped down and eased himself into the warm water. The effect was immediate. His aching muscles relaxed, and the fog of confusion began to lift from his mind. As he soaked, he tried to make sense of his situation. He was stranded on an alien world, surrounded by stunningly beautiful women who seemed utterly captivated by him. It was like something out of a cheesy science fiction novel. And yet, here he was. After what felt like hours, Connor reluctantly pulled himself from the pool. He was surprised to find a set of soft, shimmering garments laid out for him, loose-fitting pants and a tunic that seemed to change color slightly as he moved. Dressed in his new alien attire, Connor made his way back to the clearing where he'd first encountered the women. A small group awaited him, including Azura and Violetta. Azura's eyes lit up as she saw him approach. Connor, you look much refreshed. How do you feel? Better, thank you, he replied, running a hand through his damp hair. Though I have about 1,000,000 questions. Violetta gracefully rose to her feet. And we have just as many for you, Earthman. But first, we must properly welcome you to Elysium. She held out her hand. Would you join me in the traditional dance of greeting? Connor hesitated. I should warn you, I'm not much of a dancer. Violetta's laugh was like music. Fear not, I will guide you. She took his hand, and Connor felt a jolt of electricity at her touch. Violetta began to move, her body flowing like water. Connor did his best to follow her lead, but his movements felt clumsy and awkward in comparison. As they danced, more of the alien women gathered to watch. Connor could hear their whispers and giggles, which only increased his self-consciousness. He stumbled, nearly losing his balance. Violetta steadied him, her touch lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. You're doing wonderfully, she encouraged. Now, for the final move. She spun gracefully, expecting Connor to catch her. Instead, he tripped over his own feet, sending them both tumbling to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The watching crowd erupted in laughter, but it wasn't cruel. Connor found himself chuckling along with them as Violetta helped him to his feet. Perhaps we should stick to earth dances in the future, he suggested with a grin. Azura approached, her eyes twinkling with amusement. I believe it's time we showed you our village, Connor. There is much to discuss. As they walked, Connor couldn't help but notice the way the other women looked at him, with a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something that made his pulse quicken. He'd never received this much female attention in his life. "So," he said, trying to focus on something other than the alluring alien women surrounding him. "You mentioned this was a former pleasure colony. What exactly does that mean?" Azura's expression grew thoughtful. Long ago, advanced races would come here for recreation and companionship. She glanced at him, a hint of color darkening her blue cheeks. "We are descendants of those who were left behind when the colony was abandoned." Connor's mind raced with the implications. "And you've been here alone all this time?" Violetta nodded. "We have built our own society, our own way of life, but we have always wondered about the worlds beyond our own." They reached the outskirts of what appeared to be a small settlement. The buildings were unlike anything Connor had ever seen, organic structures that seemed to grow from the very earth itself, shimmering with the same opalescent quality as the bathing pools. A crowd had gathered, all women, all stunningly beautiful in their alien way. They whispered and pointed as Connor passed, some bold enough to reach out and touch his arm or hair. "Ladies, please," Azura said, a note of amusement in her voice. "Give our guests some space." One of the women, her skin a pale mint green, stepped forward. "Azura, is it true? Is he really from Earth?" Connor nodded. "Connor Walsh, at your service." He extended his hand, remembering too late that they might not be familiar with the gesture. To his surprise, the green-skinned woman grasped his hand in both of hers, her eyes wide with wonder. "I am Emeralda," she breathed. "Your skin, it's so warm." Connor gently extracted his hand, feeling overwhelmed by the attention. "It's, nice to meet you all. I have to say, this is not how I expected my day to go when I woke up this morning." Emeralda tilted her head. "How did you expect it to go?" Connor laughed. "Well, I certainly didn't plan on crash landing on an alien planet full of beautiful women who seem fascinated by me. It's a bit like winning the lottery and being hit by lightning at the same time." The women exchanged confused glances. "Lottery? Lightning?" Violetta asked. "Earth expressions," Connor explained. "I just meant, this is all very unexpected." Azura placed a comforting hand on his arm. "I'm sure you must feel quite overwhelmed. Come, let us show you to where you can rest. We can continue our cultural exchange in the morning." As they led him to a small but comfortable dwelling, Connor's mind whirled with the events of the day. He'd gone from a routine space mission to being the sole male on a planet of alien beauties who seemed utterly captivated by him. Part of him knew he should be focusing on repairing his ship and finding a way home. But as he settled into the soft, pulsating bed, which seemed to be some sort of living organism, another part of him couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this strange new world had in store. One thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Azura led Connor into the small dwelling, which seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The walls glowed softly, pulsating in rhythm with the gentle light of bioluminescent plants outside. The space was serene, a perfect blend of organic forms and tranquil ambience, making it an ideal retreat for a man overwhelmed by the day's unexpected events. As Azura guided Connor to the bed, her presence was both calming and alluring. Her movements were fluid and graceful, every step accentuated by the soft shimmer of her skin. The deep blue of her complexion seemed to capture and reflect the ambient light, creating a mesmerizing play of shadows and highlights that only enhanced her ethereal beauty. Her eyes, luminous and expressive, held a depth that spoke of ancient wisdom and untold mysteries. Each glance she cast was imbued with a gentle warmth that made Connor's heart race. The bed itself was an intriguing creation, a living organism that seemed to adapt to the contours of his body. As he lay down, the surface conformed to his shape, providing a cocoon of comfort. Azura settled beside him, her touch light and electrifying. Her skin was velvety, warm to the touch, and seemed to thrum with a subtle energy that resonated through every part of him. As their bodies drew closer, the air between them grew charged with a palpable tension. Azura's fingers traced delicate patterns across Connor's skin, each touch sending waves of sensation through him. Her breath was warm and fragrant, mingling with the heady scent of the alien flora that filled the room. The intensity of their connection was immediate, a dance of mutual exploration and deepening desire. Their movements were slow and deliberate, guided by an unspoken understanding. Azura's eyes closed in pleasure as she leaned into him, her form pliant and responsive. Each gasp and moan that escaped her lips was a testament to the profound pleasure she experienced. Her beauty was not just in her appearance, but in the way she surrendered to the moment, her body flowing with the rhythm of their shared intimacy. As they explored each other, the boundaries between them seemed to dissolve. Azura's skin, glowing softly in the dim light, felt like a living canvas of textures and sensations. Her beauty was heightened by the way she embraced their closeness, every touch and caress enhancing the depth of their connection. The rhythmic pulsing of the bed seemed to synchronize with their breaths, creating an almost hypnotic cadence to their union. When they finally reached the peak of their shared experience, Azura's body arched with a grace that left Connor in awe. Her pleasure was a symphony of stifled cries and whispered sighs, each sound a testament to the intensity of their bond. As they lay together, their breath slowly returning to normal, Azura's eyes sparkled with a serene satisfaction. She nestled close to him, her body warm and relaxed against his, her presence a beacon of contentment and bliss. Connor marveled at the experience, feeling as though he had been transported to a realm where time and reality had blurred into something both extraordinary and deeply fulfilling. This world, with its wonders and surprises, had already begun to change him in ways he hadn't anticipated. As he held Azura close, he knew that this encounter was a pivotal moment in his journey, one that would forever alter his perception of himself and the universe around him. Connor awoke to the soft glow of alien bioluminescence, his mind still reeling from the events of the previous day. He blinked, momentarily disoriented by the pulsating bed beneath him. A movement beside him startled him fully awake. Azura lay there, her sapphire skin shimmering in the dim light. Her silver eyes met his, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Good morning, Earthman," she purred. Connor's heart raced. Azura gracefully rose from the bed. "Come, the others are eager to continue our cultural exchange, and I believe Emeralda has prepared a traditional morning meal for you." As they exited the dwelling, Connor was struck anew by the alien beauty of Elysium. The village bustled with activity, the colorful inhabitants going about their morning routines. Several women paused to wave or call out greetings, their eyes lingering on Connor with undisguised interest. They approached a structure that seemed to be a communal gathering area. Esmeralda stood near an ornate table laden with exotic fruits and what appeared to be some kind of shimmering nectar. "Ah, our Earth guest awakens!" Esmeralda exclaimed, her sea-green eyes sparkling. "I hope you slept well?" Connor nodded, trying to recall the phrase Azura had taught him the night before. Zarnak Matala?" he attempted. Esmeralda's eyes widened, her skin flushing to a deep emerald. The gathered women erupted in giggles and whispers. Azura bit back a laugh. "Connor, I believe you meant to say good morning. What you actually said was, well, a rather passionate declaration of love involving tentacles. Connor felt his face burn. Oh God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean— Emeralda winked playfully. No need for apologies, Earthman. Your enthusiasm is quite charming. She gestured to the table. Please, eat. You'll need your strength for today's activities. As Connor sampled the alien cuisine, which was surprisingly delicious, Violetta approached, her amethyst skin practically glowing in the morning light. Connor, she said, her voice like silk, I hoped you might join me later. I'd like to show you some of our artistic traditions. Before he could respond, another woman, this one with skin the color of burnished copper, interjected. But surely he'd rather learn about our advanced technology. I could give him a tour of the archives. Connor found himself at the center of a growing debate, each woman eager to claim his attention. He caught Azura's eye, silently pleading for help. She clapped her hands, drawing everyone's focus. Ladies, please, our guest has only just arrived. There will be time for all of these wonderful experiences. For now, perhaps we could focus on helping Connor acclimate to our world. The group reluctantly agreed, though Connor couldn't help but notice the competitive glances exchanged between some of the women. After breakfast, Connor set out to explore the village, accompanied by Azura and Emeralda. As they walked, he peppered them with questions about Elysium and its inhabitants. So, you mentioned this was a pleasure colony, he said. But it seems like you've built a whole society here. How does that work without, well, men? Emeralda smiled enigmatically. We have adapted. Our bodies are capable of self-fertilization when necessary, but it has been many generations since we've encountered a male of any species. Connor stumbled slightly at this revelation. Oh, that's interesting. Azura placed a steadying hand on his arm. Does this make you uncomfortable? He shook his head. No, not uncomfortable, just processing. There's so much about your world that's different from Earth. As they continued their tour, Connor's engineering instincts kicked in. He noticed several areas where the village's infrastructure could be improved. Near what appeared to be a communal bathing area, he paused. You know, he mused, I bet I could rig up a more efficient water distribution system here. Maybe even create some kind of shower mechanism. Azura's eyes lit up. Oh, that would be wonderful. Our bathing pools are lovely, but sometimes it would be nice to have a quicker option. Connor grinned, already sketching out plans in his mind. Give me a few hours and some basic materials and I'll see what I can do. Several hours later, Connor stood back to admire his handiwork. He'd cobbled together a rudimentary shower system using local plant fibers, crystalline structures, and some salvaged parts from his crashed ship. All right, ladies, he announced to the gathered crowd. Who wants to be the first to try Earth-style bathing? There was a moment of hesitation. Then Violetta stepped forward, her violet curls bouncing with each step. I volunteer, she said, a mischievous glint in her eye. Connor swallowed hard. Right. Well, you just step under here and then I'll activate the water flow. He pulled the lever he'd rigged up, expecting a gentle cascade of water. Instead, a torrent of multicolored foamy liquid burst forth, drenching not just Violetta but half the assembled crowd. Sputtering, Connor tried to shut off the flow, but the mechanism seemed to have a mind of its own. Soon, the entire village square was awash in rainbow-hued bubbles. To his relief, the women didn't seem upset. In fact, they were laughing, splashing each other and sliding through the foam. Emeralda grabbed his hand, pulling him into the fray. Come, Earthman, she giggled. Join in the fun you've created. Before he knew it, Connor found himself in the middle of an impromptu foam party. The alien women swirled around him, their colorful skin glistening with moisture, playfully flicking bubbles in his direction. Violetta sidled up to him, her wet clothes clinging to her lithe form. "I must say, Connor, your earth-bathing customs are quite invigorating." He laughed, running a hand through his soap-slicked hair. "This isn't exactly how showers are supposed to work, but I'm glad you're enjoying it." As the sun began to set, the foam finally dissipated. Connor, exhausted but exhilarated, found himself drawn into conversation with Azura. They sat on a hilltop overlooking the village, watching as the alien moons rose in the sky. "Tell me about the stars on Earth," Azura said, her voice filled with wonder. "Are they very different from ours?" Connor began to explain Earth's constellations, drawing diagrams in the dirt. Azura listened intently, asking insightful questions that revealed her own deep knowledge of astrophysics. As the night wore on, their conversation flowed from science to philosophy to personal experiences. Connor found himself opening up about his life on Earth, his hopes and fears in a way he never had before. Azura leaned closer, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "You are a remarkable being, Connor Walsh. I feel as though I've known you for lifetimes." The air between them crackled with tension. Connor's heart raced as Azura's face drew nearer to his. Just as their lips were about to meet, a voice called out from below. "Connor! Azura! Come quickly!" It was Emeralda, her voice tinged with excitement. "The night-blooming czar lily is about to open its petals. It only happens once a year." Azura pulled back, a mixture of disappointment and amusement on her face. "We should go. It truly is a spectacular sight." As they made their way down the hill, Connor's mind whirled. He was developing genuine feelings for Azura, but he couldn't ignore the connection he felt with the other women as well. Violetta's artistic passion, Emeralda's nurturing spirit, each of them intrigued him in different ways. The next few days passed in a blur of new experiences. Connor divided his time between working on repairs to his ship, helping with village projects, and getting to know the inhabitants of Elysium. He spent an afternoon with Violetta, learning the basics of their traditional dance. His clumsy attempts left them both breathless with laughter, but as the day wore on, he found himself moving more gracefully under her expert tutelage. With Emeralda, he explored the lush forests surrounding the village. She taught him about the medicinal properties of various plants, her gentle touch sending shivers through him as she guided his hands to feel the texture of leaves and bark. But it was his evenings with Azura that left him most conflicted. Their intellectual connection deepened with each conversation, and the physical attraction between them grew harder to ignore. One night, as they stargazed together, Azura turned to him with a serious expression. "Connor, I must ask you something." He nodded, his pulse quickening. "Of course, anything." "The others and I have been talking," she began hesitantly. We would like to hold a competition for your affections." Connor blinked in surprise. "A competition? What do you mean?" Azura explained that it was an old tradition from the pleasure colony days, a way to showcase each woman's unique talents and compatibility with a potential mate. "It's not binding," she assured him, "but it would give everyone a fair chance to impress you." Connor ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed by the implications. "I don't know, Azura. I'm flattered, really, but I'm not sure it's appropriate for me to—" She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Please, consider it. It would mean a great deal to us. And—" her voice lowered to a whisper, "I very much hope to win your heart." As Connor lay in bed that night, His mind raced with conflicting emotions. He was undeniably attracted to these alien women, fascinated by their culture and intelligence. But could he really consider a future here, on this strange planet? And how could he choose between them when each held a unique appeal? One thing was certain: his time on Elysium was far from over, and the greatest challenges and temptations still lay ahead. 2 years had passed since Connor's fateful crash landing on Elysium. The once alien world now felt more like home than he ever could have imagined. As he stood on the balcony of his dwelling, watching the triple moons rise, he marveled at how much his life had changed. A soft cry from inside drew his attention. Connor turned to see Azura cradling their son, Orion. The baby's skin shimmered with a subtle blue iridescence, a perfect blend of his parents' coloring. At just 6 months old, Orion already showed signs of extraordinary intelligence, his silver eyes tracking complex movements and solving simple puzzles with ease. "He's restless tonight," Azura murmured, joining Connor on the balcony. "Perhaps he senses the excitement in the air." Connor nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's a big day tomorrow, the festival of renewal, and my first time participating as a father." A melodic laugh drifted up from the garden below. Violetta twirled into view, their daughter Aurora perched on her hip. At 18 months old, Aurora was a whirlwind of creative energy. Her skin shifted through a rainbow of hues as she babbled excitedly, pointing at the moons. "Papa!" Aurora called out, waving frantically. "Come dance!" Connor chuckled. "Duty calls. I'll be back soon," he told Azura, pressing a kiss to her cheek before descending to the garden. As he approached, Violetta set Aurora down. The toddler immediately began to sway, her movements surprisingly graceful for her age. Connor attempted to mimic her, resulting in a clumsy shuffle that sent both Violetta and Aurora into fits of giggles. "Oh, my love," Violetta teased, her amethyst eyes twinkling. 2 years and still you dance like a newborn Grazek. Perhaps we should have Aurora teach you." Connor laughed, scooping up his daughter. "I'll have you know I've made great progress. I only stepped on 3 toes at last week's gathering." A rustling in the nearby foliage caught their attention. Esmeralda emerged, their youngest child, Tara, nestled in a sling across her chest. At just 3 months old, Tara already exhibited an uncanny connection to the plant life of Elysium. Flowers seemed to bloom at her touch, and the great sentient trees of the forest swayed in greeting whenever she passed. "I thought I might find you all here," Esmeralda said, her sea-green eyes warm with affection. Tara was fussing. I think she wanted to be part of the family gathering. Connor felt a swell of emotion as he looked at his 3 partners and children. It hadn't been an easy road to this unconventional family structure, but he couldn't imagine his life any other way now. "Well," he said, clearing his throat against the sudden tightness, "since we're all here, why don't we have an impromptu family night? I've been wanting to introduce you to an Earth tradition called a slumber party." The next morning dawned bright and chaotic. Connor found himself in the middle of a whirlwind of activity as he tried to wrangle his children and prepare for the festival. "Orion, no! Don't put that in your mouth," he called out, lunging to snatch a glowing crystal from his son's grasp. In his distraction, he nearly tripped over Aurora, who was gleefully painting intricate patterns on the floor with what he hoped was washable dye. Esmeralda entered, Tara cooing softly in her arms. She took in the scene with an amused smile. "Having trouble, Earthman?" Connor ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I thought I'd try to organize a little cleanup session before the festival. You know, teach the kids about responsibility and teamwork." Esmeralda's laughter rang out. "Oh, Connor, always trying to blend Earth customs with our ways. Here, let me show you how we prepare for celebrations on Elysium." She set Tara down gently, then made a series of musical clicks and whistles. To Connor's amazement, the plants around the room began to move. Vines stretched out, gently collecting toys and straightening furniture. Flower-like appendages opened, releasing a sweet-smelling mist that seemed to dissolve dirt and grime on contact. "Aurora, Orion," Esmeralda called softly. "Come, show your father how we get ready." The children giggled and began to dance in a pattern Connor recognized from some of their traditional ceremonies. As they moved, the plants responded, helping to dress and groom them with gentle, vine-like tendrils. Connor blinked in astonishment. "That's incredibly efficient, but I was hoping to teach them about—" His words were cut off as a particularly enthusiastic vine attempted to straighten his hair, leaving him sputtering and covered in sweet-smelling pollen. The room erupted in laughter. "Lesson learned," Connor chuckled, brushing himself off. "Elysium, 1, Earth customs, 0. As they made their way to the festival grounds, Connor couldn't help but marvel at the vibrant community he'd become a part of. The once quiet village now bustled with life, a harmonious blend of alien and Earth-inspired innovations. The festival was in full swing when they arrived. Colorful banners stretched between crystal spires, and the air was filled with the scent of exotic foods and the sound of alien music. Connor watched with pride as Aurora joined a group of children in a traditional dance, her movements far more graceful than his could ever hope to be. Azura appeared at his side, Orion balanced on her hip. "It's amazing, isn't it?" she said, following his gaze. "How seamlessly they adapt to both cultures." Connor nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "They're the best of both worlds. I just hope I'm doing right by them." Azura squeezed his hand. "You are. We all are. Together." As the day wore on, Connor found himself pulled into various festival activities. He judged a baking contest featuring ingredients he still couldn't pronounce, participated in a ritual blessing for the coming year, only accidentally setting one small fire in the process, and even managed to complete a traditional dance without major incident. It was nearing sunset when Violetta found him, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Connor, you need to come quickly. We've discovered something unexpected." She led him to the outskirts of the village where a small crowd had gathered. As they approached, Connor saw what had caused the commotion. A section of the ground had fallen away, revealing a hidden chamber beneath. Inside, bathed in an eerie blue glow, stood an arch-like structure covered in intricate symbols. Esmeralda stepped forward, her eyes wide. "It's a portal," she breathed. "One of the ancient gateways used by the original colonists. We always thought they were just legends, but—" Connor's mind raced. A portal, a way back to Earth. He'd long ago given up hope of returning home, having made peace with his new life on Elysium. But now, faced with the possibility, a whirlwind of emotion swept through him. Azura appeared at his side, concern etched on her features. "Connor, are you all right?" He nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the portal. I'm not sure. This is a lot to process." The news spread quickly through the festival. As night fell, Connor found himself at the center of a gathered crowd, all eyes on him expectantly. He could see the fear and uncertainty in the faces of his partners, the confusion in his children's eyes. Taking a deep breath, Connor addressed the group. "I know you're all wondering what this means. The truth is, I'm not entirely sure myself, but I want you all to know that my life here, with all of you, has been the greatest adventure I could have ever imagined." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the faces he'd come to love. This portal, it's a link to my past, but you, all of you, are my future. With determined steps, Connor approached the portal. He reached out, his fingers hovering just above the control panel. A moment of hesitation, a breath held by the entire community. Then, decisively, he deactivated the device. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, followed by a wave of cheers and applause. Connor turned back to face his family, his heart swelling with emotion. Azura, Violetta, and Emeralda rushed forward, enveloping him in a group embrace. The children, sensing the importance of the moment, joined in, their small arms wrapping around whatever part of Connor they could reach. As the celebration resumed around them, now with renewed vigor, Connor found himself perched on a hilltop overlooking the village. His partners and children sprawled around him, all watching the spectacular triple moonrise. "You know," Connor mused, a mischievous glint in his eye, "we really should consider some kind of interstellar parenting conference. I mean, between the three of you and my Earth background, our poor kids are going to be so confused." Violetta laughed, leaning against his shoulder. "Perhaps we could create a new calendar system, one with, 500 days? That might be enough to keep track of all the birthdays and anniversaries." "Don't forget the pet birthdays," Emeralda chimed in, gesturing to the puff pal that had taken up residence in Aurora's hair. Azura shook her head, smiling fondly. "You realize, of course, that any system we create will be obsolete within a year. Our family has a way of expanding unexpectedly." Connor grinned, looking out over the twinkling lights of the village below. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As laughter echoed across the hilltop, Connor felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. This vibrant, chaotic, loving family was everything he never knew he wanted. And here, under the alien sky of Elysium, he was finally, truly home. As the laughter subsided, Connor looked out over the village once more, his eyes tracing the path of the now deactivated portal. A gentle breeze carried the scent of night-blooming flowers, reminding him of how much he'd come to love this alien world. "You know," he said, his voice thoughtful, "I think it's time we start planning for the future, not just ours, but for all of Elysium." Azura tilted her head, curiosity sparking in her silver eyes. "What do you mean, Connor?" He grinned, the familiar excitement of a new project lighting up his features. "Well, we've got this incredible blend of Earth and Elysium technology and culture. Why not use it to help the planet thrive? We could set up an education system that combines the best of both worlds, maybe even think about sustainable expansion." Violetta clapped her hands in delight. "Oh, and we could incorporate art and music from both cultures. Imagine the performances we could create." "Don't forget about advancements in healing and botany," Emeralda chimed in, stroking Tara's hair as the baby cooed softly. "There's so much potential in combining our knowledge." As they talked, their excitement growing, the children began to stir. Aurora tugged on Connor's sleeve, her skin shimmering with a mix of curious blues and greens. "Papa, can we help too?" Connor's heart swelled with pride. He scooped up his daughter, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Of course you can, sweetheart. In fact, you and your siblings are the most important part of all this. You're the future of Elysium." Orion, not to be left out, crawled into Azura's lap, his silver eyes wide with intelligence beyond his years. "Build? New home?" he asked, his vocabulary surprisingly advanced for his age. "That's right, little one," Azura said, her voice full of emotion. "We're all going to build a new home together." As the three moons reached their zenith, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. Connor stood up, stretching his hand out to his partners. "Well, what do you say we get started? We've got a whole new world to shape." One by one they rose, children in arms or clinging to legs. As they made their way back down to the village, ideas flowing freely between them, Connor felt a sense of purpose he'd never known before. This was more than just surviving on an alien world or even finding love in unexpected places. This was about creating a legacy, a blending of worlds that could lead to something truly extraordinary. The festival lights twinkled below, and in the distance, Connor could hear the sound of music and laughter. It was a reminder of the joy and life that had flourished here, against all odds. And now, with their combined knowledge and the limitless potential of their children, the future seemed brighter than ever. As they reached the outskirts of the village, Connor paused, taking in the scene before him. The colorful inhabitants of Elysium mingled with the structures and technology he'd helped implement. It was a beautiful fusion of two worlds, a testament to the power of adaptation and love. "You know," he said, a mischievous glint in his eye, "we're probably going to need a bigger calendar for all the new holidays and celebrations we'll come up with." Esmeralda laughed, shaking her head. "Oh, Connor, always thinking practically. But you might be right. Perhaps a holographic one that can expand infinitely?" "Now you're talking," he grinned, wrapping an arm around her waist. As they rejoined the festivities, Connor felt a profound sense of belonging wash over him. This vibrant, unusual, loving family was everything he never knew he needed. And here, under the starry sky of Elysium, surpassed by the warmth of community and the excitement of boundless possibilities, Connor knew he had found his true home. The story of the Earthman and his alien family was just beginning, but already it was clear that it would be one for the ages. A tale of love, adaptation, and the remarkable things that can happen when two worlds collide.